True success in any Google Ads campaign is built off the quality of data that you are feeding back into Google Ads. And this becomes especially important for service-based or lead generation businesses who don't have an assigned conversion value to form inquiries and phone calls. A common complaint that I hear about Google Ads is that they started a new campaign like Performance Max and they started to see a lot of spammy or poor quality leads. And it's really easy to blame the campaign type Performance Max, where in fact, what the actual problem is the data that you're feeding back into Google Ads. So that's why in this video, I brought on Johan so that we could talk about how to set up offline conversions. And we also go through some real life cases of how we have used offline conversions to improve the performance and allow real businesses to scale with all of the different campaign types that we have to use in Google Ads in 2025. So why don't you sit back and relax as we talk all about Google Ads and the role of offline conversions.
All right, welcome back. And today I've got the absolute privilege of having Johan with me. Johan is actually one of the Define Digital Academy on-demand coaches. And obviously he specializes in all things Google Ads, but one of his, I guess I would call superpowers would be offline conversions. I've been working with Johan now for well over 2 years. And when this whole offline conversions thing was first started, he found out a way to get it done before there was any documentation out there. So that's why I wanted to invite Johan on so that we can talk about this. So Johan, I might just really start with, I guess probably the biggest question is, why should a business focus on offline conversions for their Google Ads campaigns?
Sure, of course. So, first of all, I think we need to talk about what is traditional conversion tracking versus offline conversion tracking. So a regular business today, if you go to Google Ads and you want to do advertising with Google Ads, you typically measure like form submissions or calls on your website as the conversion that you are performing. But the problem with this in the long term, or if you're scaling, is that you're always going to have a certain percentage of spam that comes through your forms. So a way to mitigate this and get around it is to start measuring the things that happens in the back end of your business instead of in the front end. I typically call it like that. So in the front end, meaning your form submissions on the site or your website or landing pages. And then you have your back end, which is your CRM or your sales process. And whenever you close a client or you deem them to be qualified, that's when you can take their information, you can upload them to Google and tell Google that, hey, Google, this client that I just closed, that should be a conversion. So that way you are moving the measurement of conversions further back in the sales cycle and therefore improving the sort of feedback loop into Google and telling them that these persons that came through my business, these are conversions and not the ones that you saw in the beginning for coming through the form, for example. So that's why you should do this.
Now, this is obviously a really rough way of explaining it. One of the ways is obviously if business owners could think about it, sort of like for an e-commerce brand, there's no way that you would track and put hits of value on add to carts. You're putting more value on the actual conversion of when they've actually, purchased the product. And in a rough way, that's what we're trying to do with offline conversions for businesses. If you see the form inquiry or the phone call as the add to cart, what the offline conversion data is we're actually putting back into from these 10 form inquiries or 10 phone calls, these are the 5 leads that led to money in the bank as a business. And of those 5 leads, these 2 of them were the ones that were, the really high value clients. I find that allows people to conceptualize a little bit better. So what we're really trying to do is we're letting Google know, because we know that with Google Ads, it's not just targeting about keywords, it's also targeting about audiences, demographics, search history, so many different factors, sort of giving the data for Google to paint the picture to go, these are the high value clients. And this is what we want to focus on more.
Yeah, exactly. And especially like you say, for those more audience-driven campaigns like PMax and an AI Max now, which is just being rolled out for search, those are more looking at the behaviors of people than just like the keywords. And that's where it's very important to feed back this good information to Google.
We would say with this that the offline conversions, it's not a simple setup sometimes. So I guess probably, do you have any, criteria, is this for all lead generation business or for lead gen or service-based businesses? When should they really start looking at investing in offline conversion?
We're going to get straight back into the interview real soon, but I did want to quickly let you know that this video was brought to you by Define Digital Academy On Demand. And this is the latest program that we've created specifically for business owners that want to scale with Google Ads. And I do want to add that Johan is one of our on-demand coaches, and on-demand is built on the principle that for success with Google Ads, you need to not only know how your business works, but you also need to know how Google Ads works. And on-demand is a specialized program where you get personal one-on-one coaches with either myself or one of my on-demand coaches. You also get direct access to us via Slack. And we also put together a tailored strategy for you and your business so that we can take you to the next levels of success with Google Ads. And if you'd like to find out more information or apply for the on-demand program, why don't you follow that link in the description below. But right now, let's head back to the interview.
Yeah, so like you say, this is for lead-based businesses where they rely on leads to drive their business further in their marketing process. So it's not for e-commerce, like we said. And when doing this, I think it's important to look at what are the types of campaigns that I'm running. If you're planning on starting to use Performance Max for your lead gen business, I would definitely recommend having a look at offline conversion import, because when running PMax today without it and just relying on the front end stuff like the form submissions and the calls, it is very prone to attract spam. It's almost a 50-50 coin flip sometimes if it's going to be a success or just a failure when you start a PMax campaign. And also, if you are looking into getting started with the new AI Max feature of the search campaigns, I would also highly recommend having OCI or offline conversion import in place before doing it, because that's also something that this is just speaking of experience with Google, but I think it's going to be prone to a lot of spam as well if you just fire it off as it is in your current marketing system. So
I know, like, internally for us, for any clients that we're managing their accounts or in coaching or whatever programs they're part of, we actually don't run Performance Max or any AI generated campaign features without offline conversions for lead gen, just because we see it's just too risky. There are some clients that we've reviewed their accounts and it's working without it, and we kind of leave it alone, but we do give the really strong warning that, sometimes you can have Performance Max working well in lead gen, and then 7, 8, 9 months down the track, you can just see this whole influx of spam inquiries starting to come into the business.
Yeah. Also, if you want to get started with offline conversions, I think it's important to understand that you need a certain amount of conversions coming through your system, because by measuring the stuff that goes through to the back end, you're effectively reducing the amount of conversions you actually measure. So if you're having maybe 1 or 2 conversions a day using form submissions, if you start using OCI, then you're going to have like maybe 2 or 3 conversions per week. And that's going to heavily reduce the amount of data that goes back into the campaign. And therefore, it's going to also cause some issues with performance going up and down very heavily. So it's also not for the smaller businesses or smaller campaigns, because it's just not gonna make it basically for the data.
Yeah, and most businesses, when they're first starting out, they can get enough foothold within search campaigns to really generate enough conversions. When they're looking to scale and they find that they can't scale through a search campaign because of rising CPC, or they need to reach out to more audiences, that's when we go, look, if you really want to take this to the next level, you need to invest in offline conversions.
Yes.
All right. Are you able to give us a bit of a summary of the process of getting started with offline conversions? I know this is going to be, and this is where it gets technical, because every website is different, every business is different. But if you could just break it down in the process of what a business would need to do to get started with offline conversions.
So there's 2 major ways of being able to start with offline conversions. The first one, which has been working for years, is something called the Google Click ID. That's the ID that gets assigned to the user when they click the ad. They come through to your site. And if you have the proper CRM or form solution, you can capture that Google Click ID and store it together with the form submission, for example. So once you get that lead through the sales process and you feel like, hey, this user was a sale or a qualified customer, you can just use that Google Click ID and just upload it whenever you want. That's the old way, if you want to call it that, to do it. It's always been around for a long time, but the new way is enhanced conversions for leads. It's a dumbed down version where you are using the information they are already providing in the forms, which in this case is phone numbers and emails. So in order to get started with enhanced conversions for leads, you need a form solution that has the ability to pass the user information from the form, preferably to the thank you page, where you can then have a script that captures that information and then sends it over to Google Tag Manager. Once you get the information back into Google Tag Manager, you can then use an event called a user provided data event. And that feature can then send that information into Google Ads and tell Google that, hey, Google, I just got this person coming through my site submitting this information. So let's store this information for future use so I can match it with a potential, offline conversion import in the future. Then once the lead or this person gets closed, or you close the deal or you deem them qualified, you can then upload this information back into Google, and Google will then match this information that you initially uploaded from the form submission. So that's like the bird's eye view of how this works. Then, of course, the form solution itself, there's numerous options out there on how you can do that. And then, of course, you don't have to use Google Tag Manager. You can just use the Google Tag, but that requires you to have some coding skills and do some stuff with the site and things. And it's all very different depending on if you're on WordPress, Webflow, Wix, Squarespace, what form solutions you have, if you have a CRM or not. So it's a lot different depending on what you have.
Is that get technical, but then it also does require a level of it's not automated. So you do then have to have it. You have to then download your sales and upload information into a Google Sheet or however you're reporting it back. So that's one thing we do let people know, that not only is once you get that system set up, not only is it technical, and not only sometimes you can have a step-by-step process and it doesn't work because of the website, or you've got to filter around with it a little bit. You then also too, like on a weekly basis or monthly basis, however often we recommend at least weekly, you do need to be uploading data to make sure that information stays relevant.
And in regards to that, uploading the actual information back to Google, I would say doing it on a weekly basis is as far as you should push it. Because if you're doing it longer than that, then it's like a big gap for Google to not know if there's any data to bid on or to use for bidding. You would like to have it like direct. So the best way is to have a CRM where you have this native integration with Google Ads, where all these things are already being captured in the CRM forms tool that you have on your site. And then once you have the lead going through the different pipeline stages or sales pipeline, when it goes through a certain stage, it will be pushed back to Google as an offline conversion automatically. That's the best way to do it. You can also use Google Sheets to upload the information, but I wouldn't recommend that because it's prone to errors. And also, as long as you make it more manual, it becomes a difficult thing to handle, because let's face it, you're a business owner or someone dealing with your business, so you're not going to have the time to do that. Promise you, I've seen multiple clients trying to do it manually with sheets and everything, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. And I guess that's why for us, even if you've got that process set up, we generally recommend to, I guess what we're going to talk about now is, especially since this has all been launched now, there's pretty much most CRMs, like, obviously the big ones, Salesforce, HubSpot, Go High Level included, even, CoreRail, What Converts. I've even seen smaller, like really specific niche trade ones. Either they've got integrations built in, or there is actually Zapier integrations built in. And this would be our recommendation if you are going to look at doing offline conversions, that you're worthwhile investing into a CRM.
Yeah, definitely.
That's now looked at. Obviously, you've got two options. You can obviously set it up manually. We've gone through why you would do it. Then there's obviously the CRMs option you can go from there. I guess probably what I really want to get to in now is, because it does take a little bit of investment, and that investment is either time or money. What are the benefits of it? And what I'd really like to talk about is, what extra optimizations does it give you? And what are the different structure options that you can also use when you've got proper offline conversion tracking?
Sure. So I would say the process itself of actually setting up the offline conversions, that's a type of optimization. Other than that, the rest of the optimizations you can do in your search campaigns or PMax campaigns, whatever it is, you can just do them as usual. The thing is, the numbers you're now reporting back to your campaign are going to be actual numbers of closed deals or qualified customers. And that's the big difference here, because you're removing the fog. Imagine being a blind person going on the street with a stick, trying to figure out where he's going. That's like the traditional conversion tracking, because you're getting both spam and good leads. But activating offline conversion import, that's like taking off the glasses and giving him, augmented reality glasses, and he can see exactly where the good customers are. So you can go straight to them and say like, hey, why don't you get into my business and I'll help you. That's essentially what you're building with offline conversions. In terms of optimizations, nothing extra goes on there, but the process itself is an optimization into your account.
Yeah, and we've really found it gives us, I guess, more data points so that we can start, as we said at the top, we feel comfortable to use a Performance Max campaign, because then you can use campaign-specific goals. So we're only going for Performance Max. We only actually want you to track this offline conversion goal. So so once we've got this set up, we wouldn't even track forms or phone calls inside of a Performance Max campaign.
No.
Obviously, AI Max for businesses wanting you to use demand gen, it just opens up all of these new options because you're feeding back the data. And like anything, it's basically just becomes using your smart bidding and your AI optimization so that you can use the data.
I think it's important to understand that smart bidding requires conversions to function well. The thing that a lot of people miss or don't understand sometimes is that conversion tracking or conversions, that's highly unique for every business, because Google doesn't know what you think is a conversion. You could have a visit to the contact page being a conversion, or it could be something completely else. So the closer you can get your conversion tracking to be real business value, so actual closed deals, preferably even with the value of the deal attached to it, because you can upload that as well, then you're really telling Google, hey, this is the amount of money I can make from this person and this person and this person, so please give me more of those. That's what you're telling Google when you're doing offline conversion import. So that's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of businesses, I mean, that's, I guess, in essence, why, especially lead generation, if they're not using offline conversions, why they do get spammy calls, because those spammy leads or those spammy calls are generally cheaper, lower quality traffic.
Yeah.
But if you're using maximized conversions, Google thinks, hey, I'm doing a great job here. We're getting, last month we got 10 form inquiries. Now we're getting 30 form inquiries at the same price. But obviously with offline conversions, what you're doing is you're reporting back to Google, these are not leads. These are not leads that we value. So Google stops targeting them.
Exactly. Always remember, if you're doing maximized conversions, Google is always going to go down the path of least resistance. Always. Yeah. So if you make it easy for Google, it's going to be easy as well to get conversions, but you're going to get a bunch of bad leads. So
let's now actually talk about an example or a positive example, because obviously there's going to be some businesses listening to this that are just going, hey, look, I can see the value in it, but I don't really want to, is the investment in time and money going to be worth it?
Yeah.
So, let's talk about an example and a success story that I know you're going to give us on. So you set the scenario for the business, and then what happened once you were able to set off offline conversions for them.
Sure. So we have a client of ours where we started with, actually they were interested in getting started with Performance Max, and we tried it out, and this was like 1.5, maybe 1 year ago.
Yeah. Oh, no, 2 years ago now. Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years. Yeah. So we started with PMax like any other business wanted to do when the, PMax started really getting traction out there. We got started with it, and as with a lot of businesses, it's just started generating spam leads. It just didn't work. So we turned off the PMax and went back to focusing more on search. But then we said like, hey, I mean, you guys are using HubSpot, you have a solid sales system in place, you have a CRM, everything is working really well for you guys. So why don't we start using offline conversions to see if we can, get the PMax on a good track? So we did that. And the first thing we did was to actually implement the actual offline conversion tracking. We let it run for about 30 to 60 days. So that can, conversion action can accumulate some data before we actually activate it. Then we started the PMax on this offline conversion action import. And oh and behold, it worked really, really well. So we were able to increase the spend by 30% on top of what we were doing before. And the PMax is consistently generating good quality leads all the time. Sometimes it goes a little bit haywire, but that's just the discovery part of it, going into new audiences to find conversions. But with this good feedback loop that we have now, it's a hole that shuts tight quite quickly if it's not finding good leads. So now it's really, really working really well for this client.
And in this account, the other thing that we'd like to really point out and note was one of the reasons why we wanted to pursue with Performance Max is because they were getting priced out with their CPCs. I think there were, from memory, it was like a 6-month period. Their CPCs went from low $3 touching up to mid $4s. And when we introduced Performance Max, when you look over the 9-month period of when it started, the total account CPC stayed level. I think the average was 356, it was in the 350s.
Yeah.
Search went up to the mid $4s, but then PMax was bringing it down in the mid $2s. So what it also allows is it allows you to pick up some traffic at a lower price because not everyone's playing in that search market.
No. Also, something to be aware of is that the CPA always goes up when you activate offline conversions because you're ultimately, recording less conversions. So it is going to go up. But the funny thing is that number that you get from the higher CPA, that's a number that's always been there. You just haven't seen it before because you're now measuring the real conversions, and that's why it goes up. But on the flip side, the CAC goes down. So the customer acquisition cost, that goes down. So for this client in particular, it went down 22%. Because now we're focusing on, higher quality leads. We are improving the close rates because we get better leads through. We fill the calendar with better appointments because it's just better leads. They're not tire kickers. And you get better deal and project sizes as well because for this client, we're not including the value because they have basically the same value for all their deals. But if you are a home, building, remodeling business or whatever, then you can have your value attached to it because some clients might be worth $50,000 and one can be worth $5,000. And if you include the value over time, as you do this, you're going to see more and more of those better deals coming through because Google focuses more on those. So,
and that's really what I guess probably the moral of the story or the underlying core message with offline conversions is it's just giving you extra data points. So it's really coming to is that, for a business owner, your cost per conversion, yes, it may increase, but if your return on your actual ad spend is increasing, that actually becomes more important rather than the cost per lead. Not only that too is then you or your sales team are actually wasting less time on poor quality leads. So it becomes a flow-on effect that really does help the business in a lot of different ways. That's where I guess the main thing that I come back to is when you hear people say that, Performance Max doesn't work. Generally, it always comes back to a data issue. It's actually got nothing to do with the campaign. It's actually got everything to do with because when you look at it, Performance Max is purely, as I say this on repeat, it's all about generating more conversions. So if you're getting low quality conversions in your account and then you throw Performance Max on top, obviously saying what happened with AO Max, saying what happened with Demand Gen, you're going to get more low quality leads. But if you're feeding your account and you've only got high quality leads, it's then going to create more high quality leads for you. But so it all comes back to the data. Do you have any tips and tricks or last comments you want to make on this topic of offline conversions?
Sure. So one question I get a lot is if customer match lists are offline conversions, which is not. Customer match lists is there for make the bidding signals for PMax, for example, or to use for Demand Gen as an audience to either exclude or include. That's what you can use with customer match lists. So it's not to be confused with uploading offline conversions. It's not the same thing. So you cannot upload your past, 300 days of customers as a customer match list and think that is offline conversion import, which it isn't. So another thing is I would try to avoid manual setups. So like I said before, using Google Sheets or other sheet solutions and then uploading those manually into Google because it's prone to error and you're not going to be able to stick with the routine of doing it continuously. It's just a bad way of doing it. So it's better to invest in a proper CRM and then having all this being taken care of, in the background while you're just doing your everyday business. That's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I 100% agree with that. I think, you could argue 2 years ago, but as I said, there's not many CRMs out there now. I'm just trying to think the last CRM that I came across that didn't have either an inbuilt integration or a Zapier workaround for the integration.
Yeah. Another thing is all conversion tracking and the way that Google looks at conversion data only stretches back 90 days.
Yeah.
And the same thing goes for offline conversions. So if you are in a business where you have a long sales cycle, because now you're not going to rely on the front end form submissions that happen instantaneously. You're going to rely on the back end when the deal closes or whatever it is. So let's pretend that you have a home remodeling company and you get the lead through, and then you close the deal in 6 months or 12 months because it's a long process for the client to decide on what to go with and what to do, and decide on the investment and all that stuff. If you have those long sales cycles that go beyond the 90 days of how far back Google can see the conversion data, then you need to back up in your sales cycle and find a sooner point where you upload the information about the user. So let's pretend that you get through a home remodeling request from your site. What you can do is have a look at, first of all, their overall data and everything, but maybe do like a discovery call with them and see how serious they are. If they are like serious, they have the money, they are looking to book a design consultation and really start talking about this, that could be the point of uploading that user, because it's now qualified. It's a sales qualified lead. That could be the point of uploading it, and that might be within a period of a couple of weeks or months from getting the form submission. So that's a good point to do it.
Yeah, we have done that before. That's something that we call, I call conversion hierarchy, where essentially, if you think it's going to be longer to close the deal, we did it with a client where we just put a nominal value. I think it was like $5,000. When they marked it as a qualified lead inside of their CRM, which in this case, again, was actually HubSpot, it then sent it out to Google a $5,000 value. Or their sales team was actually saying is, we haven't closed this lead yet, but this is the exact type of people that we want to be talking to more and more. So that's another way about it. So if you know you're going to have a really long sales window, there's nothing wrong with putting a value in there, because as long as you as a business know that $5,000 doesn't mean $5,000 in your bank, but you're just using that for the bidding and using that for the data inside of Google Ads, it's a great way of, I guess, cultivating what you deem to be a good lead or a bad lead.
Yeah, and in terms of the value reporting for the lead, it doesn't have to be a monetary value. It could be a scoring system of just plain values from 1 to 10. So if 10 being the really good leads and 1 being just trash, that's the type of number you can put into the system as well, because that's something your sales personnel or your salespersons can do themselves. They can look at the lead, they get through, they call them, and they can rate the lead from 1 to 10. Was this a 10 or a 1 or a 5 or a 6, whatever? And that information can be used for value bidding as well. It doesn't have to be a monetary value like $5,000 or $10,000 or $500, whatever it is. It can be just a value.
And I know we had another situation on that where the owner was telling us that they were getting lower quality leads, but they had changed their internal sales team, and we actually increased the number of quality leads. It just actually came off to their offline sales process, just wasn't closing the deal.
Yeah.
All right, Johan. Hey, you go.
Yeah, sorry. Last tip here is for the OCI upload. If you're using enhanced conversions for leads that we talked about, which is using the phone number and the email as the information you match the lead with, that is only going to work from the day you're starting to give Google that information. So if you're starting today, I can't upload leads that are older than from today. So you need to wait until the future when you start getting those new leads. However, if you're relying on the Google Click ID, as long as you have the Google Click ID, you can upload them. Doesn't matter if it's from 10 weeks ago or 1 week ago. As long as you have the Google Click ID, you can just upload it, because that is the information that connects, the ad click with the user. So,
no, that's great. Hey, Johan, as always, mate, it's an absolute pleasure having you on. And we look forward to seeing you on next time. See you, mate.
Yeah, see you.